Well, it's a bit different from the last time we spoke, Alex. The last time we spoke was about the Paquetá drama, so it's a bit of a different scenario this time. Right, so I
Yeah.
think on that note, let's talk about the West Ham game this weekend. Welcome back to the latest episode of B6 and Beyond. You're here for a special episode with me. I have got Alex on the show, the West Ham fan you've definitely seen on the channel before, as we've just spoke about. Before we do get into it, I just want to remind everyone we do have an ongoing giveaway for either match tickets or a shirt of your choice. All that you need to do is hit that subscribe button. All that we give away that, every 500 subscribers, and we're getting close to the next giveaway, so don't miss out. And we do have a massive like goal on the video of 20 likes, so smash a like on the video. So, Alex, thank you so much for coming on, because it's a real pleasure of mine to get you on, because I really do enjoy your content on TikTok. So make sure, if you aren't already following Alex and you like watching other people's content on different football teams, he talks so well about West Ham United. So it's good to have you on, because ultimately,
Yeah, good to be on.
you are the expert of your football team, as I'll put it.
Well,
If we can put it that way, is that what you're going to say?
well, yeah, I guess I'm the expert on TikTok, maybe, possibly. I wouldn't call myself the overall expert, but yeah, nah,
Yeah,
go for it.
I
love
like to
talking
have
West Ham.
I like to have someone from their team to come and like give us the view of what we should be expecting from West Ham. So give us a bit of a breakdown. Obviously, it's not been should we say, a particularly great start to the season for West Ham United so far. On 13 points as it stands, you have picked up 3 points in the last 4 games. So it has been, and you also got the win against Burnley and Newcastle. So we should say you have picked up a little bit.
Yeah.
What's your overall thoughts of the season so far?
Well, obviously, when we started off, we had Graham Potter at the beginning, and I think we all went into this season a little bit hopeful that we were going to start this season a lot better than last season. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way. A lot of discussions on why that was whether it was because of the transfer business done in the summer, not bringing the right players, but even the players that we did bring in, Graham Potter wasn't really using. So it became pretty clear that he wasn't really being supported by the ownership, and it just wasn't working, and it was time to move him on. And I think when Nuno became available after he left Forest, I think that just made up Sullivan's mind, because I think he always wanted Nuno, and then he brought him in. And I have to say that since Nuno has come in, we have definitely seen improvement. I know that we haven't, been picking up a huge amount of wins, but we're definitely seeing a lot more fight. We're definitely seeing a lot more togetherness. We're a lot harder to beat. The heads don't drop when we concede a goal. And yeah, there are a few negatives still, a few things which I'm not overly happy with, but on the whole, it's definitely a lot more positive now than it was under either Lopetegui or Potter. And I'm confident that he's going to get us out of this state, get us out of that relegation zone. We just got to start picking up the wins, and he's got to stop going ultra defensive as soon as we concede a goal. That's one of the things that's let us down, especially in, like, I think that let us down in the game at the weekend as well. 1-0 up against Brighton, and then just sit back and invite the pressure.
So, is there any other bits that you're not very happy about at the moment, or is it just that?
Some of the team selections are very strange. The team selections against Brentford and Leeds were mind-boggling. They really were. No one understood it. I think for the Brentford game, it was just after the international break, and a lot of people put it down to, right, these are the players that he used were the players that weren't on international duty. So, okay, he's just using the players that he has had with him for the last 2 weeks. Maybe we can understand that decision, possibly. But then he did the same thing against Leeds, and it just infuriated us because we went the same way. And as soon as we were forced into making changes into that game, we started to improve. And ever since then, I think he's kind of realised to play the team that we've all kind of wanted to see, especially in our midfield. When we were starting players like Andy Irvine and Thomas Soucek in our midfield, who, look, I love Thomas Soucek. We all love Thomas Soucek, but he just doesn't have those legs anymore. He doesn't have that creativity. He doesn't have that quality on the ball that you really need in the midfield. But since we've had Freddie Potts come in, Fernandez, Magassa as well, I think they're building. They're offering a lot more pace, they're offering a lot more legs, a lot more energy, a lot more commitment in that midfield, and we're not getting overrun as much. We're also looking a lot better defensively as well. We're not conceding loads of goals from corners. We haven't conceded a goal from a corner in quite a few games now. think we conceded like 9 in our first 6 or 7 games or something like that, which was embarrassing. But we haven't done that since. So no, as I say, when it comes to the formations, it's been we've had a lot of different kind of like formations, a lot of different players who have started. I think the best formation that we've seen is starting with 4 at the back, with a three in the midfield of someone like Potts, Fernandes, and Paquetá, with Somerville on the left, Bowen on the right, and then Callum Wilson up top. Somerville was out for a few games, so that forced Nuno into making some changes and to moving things about. For the game against Brighton, he dropped Wilson, but I understood that because that would have been his 3rd game in 8 days. And given his injury record, we can't really afford to get him picking up an injury. So we did change it up, but Somerville came back into that side, and we kind of played Bowen up top a little bit, but we still had. We've made a strange choice of starting Gudio Rodriguez in our midfield, which none of us really understood, but he left Potts and Magassa on the bench. So, yeah, as I say, the starting liners have been very confusing. And how exactly we are going to line up on Sunday, I'm not entirely sure. I don't. I don't. I know what I would prefer. I mean, I put a tweet out earlier asking about what would everyone's preferred midfield and attack be, and I gave 3 options, and it is just split down the middle about all 3. Like, no one knows exactly what we're going to go with because we've got those midfield options. Like, I think Freddie Potts will definitely start. He was rested at the weekend, so I think he'll come back into the side. You'll have Matheus Fernandes in there, who has been absolutely brilliant for us. He has really improved that midfield. He works so hard. He wins the ball back a lot. He does not stop running. He's got a lot of energy, and I've been really impressed by him.
He can play a bit as well.
He can play a bit as well, and it's whether or not we have Magassa starting or Paquetá, or we have both. But then if we have both, that'll probably mean that we don't start Callum Wilson up top, because you've got to sacrifice someone. The back 4 is going to be the back 4, which will be Juve, probably Mavropanos, Todibo, and Juve. I think it's Juve and Wan-Bissaka's last game before they go off to AFCON. So they'll probably all start. But yeah, the midfield, a bit questionable. But up top, whether Wilson will start or not, I'm not sure.
That is an issue in itself, because if you haven't got consistency in that area in particular, because look, for example, Villa, I know going into the game, I could pick you probably 9 out of players that will start. There'll be a couple here there that may change. Especially in the centre of the park, I know Kamara will play, and at the moment, Onana's an absolute shoo-in, and Tielemans will play in the 10 role. And having that consistency in the midfield is probably one thing that's pushing us up the league table.
Yeah, I think that's what frustrated us about the game on Sunday against Brighton, that he dropped Magassa and Potts after Magassa put in a man of the match performance against Manchester United. He was superb that day, absolutely superb. But then he was dropped, which really confused us. Like, these are not players who are injury prone. These are not players who are going into their 30s and you've got to look after a little bit. These are young players, you know. I think Magassa is 21. You've got Potts who's 22. No, Magassa's 22, Potts is 22, and Fernandes is 21. You compare that to our midfield last season, where we had Irvin and Souček and James Ward-Prowse, all players who are hitting 30, you know, with no pace. It's really refreshing for us to have a midfield. But we were playing that midfield week in, week out. But now we've got a younger midfield, just got legs. We're not doing that. But I do wonder if he was resting them for this game. So I do expect Potts to start. I do expect Fernandes to start in that midfield. It's just whether or not he goes with Magassa as a little bit more defensive, or if he sticks Paquetá in there. I think it all depends on if he starts Wilson. I think he's got to start Wilson. We need a number 9 on there. We don't look so much of a threat up top when we don't have a number 9. So I think we do. So I think it's going to be a decision between Paquetá and Magassa, and I think he'll probably go Paquetá.
I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but I've got to look at it now. I'm sure Callum Wilson has a fantastic goal scoring record against the Villa.
No, maybe it's just against teams in claret and blue, because he has a fantastic goal scoring record against us.
Right. Okay, so it's basically a goal every other game. So in 11 games, he scored 5 goals, which is
that's a decent record. Yeah, that's a decent record.
So talking about new signings, and Wilson's done okay for you, hasn't he? I'm led to believe.
Yeah, he's got 4 goals now, 1 assist, which I
for a free agent.
for a free agent is not bad. I mean, I've really questioned the signing in the summer, but it wasn't more me questioning his ability. It was more questioning whether or not he'd be able to stay fit,
Hmm.
because we have got a terrible record when it comes to keeping strikers fit. So to bring in a known Premier League striker, I just thought was absolutely mental. But so far, he's managed to stay fit, and he's scoring goals.
Make sure you're touching that wood, mate, because it literally. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because he looked a really good player prior to signing him for you, and you thought you'd. Like, I remember all the tweets and whatnot saying like West Ham had won the transfer window because of the window you had, and it was just absolutely disastrous, wasn't it? It was like you spoke yourself into your own grave, like sort of thing.
Well, I mean, if we look at some of those, signings. You look at Todibo, for example. He has massively improved over the last 4 or 5 games. He has been one of the best players on the pitch. He looks transformed under Nuno. I mean, under Potter and under Lopetegui, he looked really dodgy. He always looked out of position. He didn't look like he had the pace or the touch. But since Nuno has come in, he's moved him from a right centre back to a left centre back, and he's looked like a completely different player. I think that is the player that we signed, nearly 2 years ago now. That is the player that we wanted when we signed. So he is proving to be, at the moment, a decent signing, which I think is pretty good. But yeah, you look at some of the other signings, Fulbrook, Somerville. I think he came in, and I think he's started to look decent. He's definitely a threat every single game. Just
I like him.
His end product. I like him. He's got pace. He runs at plays.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We don't have that really. So he brings that to the side, and we always look much more of a threat going forward when he's on the pitch.
I think the thing is, Nuno's a top manager, isn't he? And he'll get more of a tune out of the players that you've got there. Look at for example, Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, some of their players ain't looking anywhere near the level they were under Nuno. You can't tell me that's not coincidental.
No, well, I mean that's the other thing that Nuno has brought in. He has got those players fighting, and I mean proper fighting. We are showing so much energy. We are not. The heads are not dropping. Before, when we used to let in a goal, the heads used to drop and then it would go 2-3. We, under Graham Potter and Julian Lopetegui, during their whole time, we only earned 6 points from winning positions in their whole time. Since Nuno has come in, we've earned 8 points from winning positions. He's only been in charge, 7-8 games?
What's your expectations ahead of the weekend then?
I think we're going to put up much more of a fight. I think we'll make it a difficult game for you. Obviously, we're very aware of what the form Villa are in at the moment. I do wonder how much your Europa League tie tomorrow is going to have an impact, because you're away from home, aren't you?
We are. I think it'll be heavily rotated. I assume.
Yeah. You assume. How you do it? I haven't actually looked at the Europa League table.
Third.
You haven't. You're third, yeah, because you're doing all right at the moment, aren't you? So
1-4
drew.
Yeah, 1-4, lost one, and that was that go-ahead Eagles game where we should have been bloody out of sight in the first half.
So, maybe that will have an impact. I don't know. But I think at home we've definitely improved. We definitely improved against Newcastle and Burnley. I thought we looked quite decently against Liverpool. We just didn't really take the game to them, which really annoyed me. Because they're there they're there to be got at the moment, Liverpool. And I think if we took the game to them a little bit more, maybe we could have got something. But it's going to be a much different challenge.
You sound like
it's favourite.
Exactly me talking about our game against Liverpool as well, mate. So it must be a claret and blue thing.
Yeah, yeah, just afraid to take it to the opposition. We showed them too much respect, basically. I think we just needed to put a bit of pressure on them, because when we did, you could see there was vulnerabilities there. Konate had a couple of, he had a couple of dodgy moments at the back, but we never really took advantage of that. But I don't know really where the main weaknesses are with Villa. Probably, I don't know really. They look just really strong every time I've watched them recently. Really, really strong. I mean, obviously you can get, yeah. I mean, that Brighton game, you went 2-0 down, but you fought back. So there's going to be opportunities. And I think it's very possible that we can get a draw. Yeah. You never know.
Well, at the end of the day, Premier League, it's a Premier League clash at the end of the day. Anyone can beat anyone in the day in the Premier League. If Villa turned up I think we'll go there and we'll come to you and get a result there. But that would probably me and my Villa cap on. But with the way we're playing at the moment, I just fancy us to get against absolutely everyone and anyone, which is as you can imagine. Is there anyone?
Is it a Villa thing? Is it a Villa thing to get a result against Arsenal and then lose against West Ham?
That is a Villa thing to do. But I would say it's a Villa thing to do. But when we've won our last 9 out of 10 Premier League games, I kind of take that away from that thought process a little bit. But yeah, that historically that is a massive Aston Villa thing to do. Like going to Liverpool, and Liverpool have lost to absolutely everyone, and then we go there and get beat by them. That was a massive Aston Villa thing to do.
Yeah, well, we've last 6 games, five unbeaten in our last 6. The only one we lost was against Liverpool. You know, we've got draws against Bournemouth, who are a pretty good, decent team. Draws against Manchester United away, who, well, you know, Man United at the moment, and Brighton away, which has always been a bogey team of ours. So I see those as all good draws, but the win against Newcastle and the win against Burnley, I thought were decent wins. So
Yeah, definitely.
I
So-
think it could be a game. Could be a good game.
Who should Villa fans be wary of ahead of the weekend? Who's going to potentially cause us problems?
Summerfield down that left hand side. I feel he can. If Paquetá starts, and I think he's going to want to have a point to prove, because obviously the last time he was at home, he messed up, got himself sent off, was a bit of an idiot, and I think he's going to want to avoid another situation like that, and I think he's going to want to maybe prove a point, possibly. And I don't know, maybe it's a bit of payback. You know, we were heavily linked with Duran last summer, and then he came into that game and then scored against us. So maybe you were linked with Paquetá, you come into this game and then he scores against you, maybe. I don't know, you know. Bit
That's just literally how football works, mate, isn't it? I would not be surprised in the slightest now you've just said that.
Well, he's also taking pot shots outside the area, Paquetá, which he hasn't been doing before, and he's got a couple of goals that way. So I think he could possibly be a threat, but as it always is with Paquetá, you just never know which version of him is going to turn up at each game. So, but of course, Bowen as well, Wilson. You know, we've got threats. I think the midfield battle is going to be an interesting one, because your midfield's really strong with Tielemans, Onana, and Kamara, and you know we've got a younger midfield in there, but you know Fernandes, he just works so hard. I think he won 16 duels against Brighton at the weekend, which is the most duels won in a single Premier League game all season, because he is just everywhere.
I like him, mate. He was one player that I thought Villa when he was leaving Southampton, because you know he reminds me of a bit like John McGinn. I would like you know, in terms of his tenacity on the football pitch. I think he would be not the perfect replacement for McGinn when he eventually leaves, but obviously it's a bit down the line when that will eventually happen. But I think he would have been the perfect replacement, because he can, like I said to you earlier in the episode, he can play a bit as well. He's a genuinely decent technical footballer as well.
He is, yeah.
Is there any players that you particularly fear from Villa?
Never liked the look of Onana when he plays against us. I don't. Obviously, Watkins, is he going to be back in full goal scoring form now after, you know, getting on the score sheet the other day? So he's always going to be a worry. Tielemans, brilliant player. You know, I do worry about him sometimes, but I know he does. I remember a couple of games where he hasn't always turned up against us, but he is still definitely a problem player. I don't know who you play down the wings these days. You starting Marlon down there? Is it Guzon or?
No, it depends on the game, but predominantly it's Rogers off the left, and then it'll be Buendia could play out there. McGinn has been predominantly on the right, so we don't really play with out and out wingers. We play more like inside forward, should we say? But McGinn has definitely been on the right, and then our fullbacks push really high. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ian Maatsen potentially plays at left back again this weekend. He was really good against Arsenal, but he surprised me that he even come in for Lucas Digne, because Lucas Digne has been absolutely brilliant all season. But we've just got quite good depth in that area. Matty Cash will definitely play at right back. He's been our best player this season.
Okay, well that'll be a challenge for Summerfield, and a bit of a challenge for our defenders as well. You know, I think if you're saying McGinn's going to be on that on that right hand side, along with Cash. I think that could be a good battle down that side with Juve, because Juve does like to get forward. Do worry a little bit about his defensive capability sometimes, especially when players are running at him. But I think that's the more technical players that that like to take them on. I'm not sure if Mate Cash is so much that technical player that likes to take players on. I know he likes to get the crosses in, but is he one to try and run into the box and take players on that way? I don't.
He's scored a few goals this season, but he won't really. To be honest with you, the way that Unai Emery likes to play, he doesn't really like his fullbacks getting to the byline and whipping across in. He much prefers and it's a massive frustration for a lot of Villa fans. Not me particularly, and not every Villa fan, because some of us understand why he's doing it. But Cash will get to the box, like basically he could whip it in, get it in the box, and you can see literally Watkins is in there surrounded by 5 defenders. So why on earth would you do that? The amount of times Cash will get into that position and he'll just turn back and recycle the ball and keep possession. Villa are a massive possession-based football team, and that's kind of how we do. And we like to building blocks and building phases to get anywhere near the box, and we won't put a ball in unless there's at least 3 or 4 Villa players in there at the very least.
Well, I think that's what the game's going to be very much like at the weekend. Like, Villa will have the majority of the ball. Nuno is that kind of manager that is happy for the opposition to have the ball a little bit, and then for us to try and play on that counter, which is very similar to the football that we had under David Moyes, which I do find quite amusing. But I've always said if Nuno can start, there are some games where we were playing how we were playing under Moyes at the beginning, because how we were playing under Moyes at the beginning to how we were playing at the end were very, very different. And this is what loads of people just didn't kind of understand, that when we were talking about the negative football, we were talking about that because it wasn't the football that we were seeing from Moyes at the beginning. Because we were letting teams have a lot more possession, but we were a lot more organised. We were brilliant offensively. We were hard to break down, and we were good going forward and good on that counter. But that just kind of disappeared in the last 6 months of his time, and we just kept on losing very, very heavily. So if Nuno can install that, which I think he is doing it, we are definitely a lot harder to beat. We definitely are working a lot harder. It's just we've got to get that counter attacking. I think our goal came from a counter attack at the weekend. Actually, Callum Wilson came on, set up Bowen.
I think it'll come. I don't see you going down, mate. I think you've got far too much quality to go down. And realistically, I know the owners aren't everyone's favourite cup of tea at West Ham at the moment. But you would assume in January there's no way that they would see you in a position where you actually go down. They're going to put some money into it, because it would be suicidal for the football club for you to get relegated.
Yeah, January is going to be interesting. Apparently there is going to be funds available. I think, again, we are going to rely on some players being sold to raise some funds. But January is just always a really difficult time to get players in anyway. So I don't know how much business we're going to do, but I do wonder if they're going to use it as an opportunity to say, look, we do spend money. Look, we do this. Look, we do that. Because it's one of the big criticisms. And I think they're going to try and use it as an opportunity to try and get some of the fans back on side. What they don't realise is this has already gone way past that now. It just has when it comes to the ownership. We're just fed up with them because they'll do little things like that, and then it'll just be they'll go back to the way they were in a couple of seasons, and we'll just be back to square one. Because this is just restarting the cycle. Bringing in Nuno is just restarting that cycle that we go through. We bring in a manager who's safe, who's going to keep us in the Premier League. Then that manager will do well. After a few years, then they say, right, we want to progress. We want to bring someone in. They get in completely the wrong person. They spend money poorly. They bring in the wrong players. They fail. We end up falling down. We go for a couple of managers, and then we go back to someone safe, and then we repeat the cycle. This is all we've seen over West Ham over the last 15 years with them in charge. And
it's crazy, isn't it? Because the amount that they actually promised you, when you're moving to the new stadium and all this, it's just completely hasn't materialised in that way, has it? You can argue that you've seen yourself win a European trophy, but realistically, apart from that, it hasn't been much to shout about, has there?
No, it's been completely mismanaged, the whole situation. If it was handled a lot better, the way that they have run the club since we have come in, we could be in a much different position because we've had the money there to spend. We've spent a lot of money. It's just been extraordinarily poorly spent, really poorly spent. And when you look at some of the finances, you look at our turnover and you look at the amount of money that we were bringing in at one point as well. And then you compared that to the amount of money that Newcastle were bringing in and Aston Villa. We were right up there. At one point, we were the seventh. We were the club who had the seventh highest revenue in the Premier League. The only ones above us were Newcastle and the Big Six. You know, we were generating that amount of money. We've dropped that a little bit now. I think we're behind Villa now, but that's because Villa have got, you know, the European football. We don't have that European football anymore. So we've dropped that now. But when we had that European football, we were right up there. And that was that opportunity when David Moyes left, was to really push on, but they screwed it up by bringing in Lopetegui. They screwed it up by having a terrible transfer window where there was no plan. No, none of the signage really made sense when you look at it. I always use the Duran one as a prime example. We're after Duran for a large part of the summer. A young, exciting striker who's got a lot of pace, a lot of promise for the future. We can't get him. Who do we get instead? Nicholas Fulkirk. 10 years older, completely different style. No plan whatsoever. So, yeah, we've just been very badly mismanaged. And
incredibly frustrating, I can imagine.
Yeah, it is incredibly frustrating because I do honestly believe that West Ham should be in a position, given the amount of money that we generate and the size of the club and the fan base, that we should be doing what Aston Villa are doing and Newcastle are doing and pushing not just for those European places but the Champions League places every year. You know, if we were managed properly, if we had proper ownership, we had ownership with proper ambition, we do have the ability and the finances to be able to do that. But it just hasn't gone that way.
Yeah, if you think about it, really, look from a realistic point of view, there isn't much. I would say in gap in size between you and Newcastle. I would say it's quite similar, personally.
Yeah, I think we've got, while we don't have that rich history when it comes to trophies, you know, like you know yourselves, Aston Villa, and the Big Six and all that, we still do have a decent history, not just with trophies, but with memorable players. And, you know, we've reached plenty of finals over the years. You know, the World Cup, you know, that was our second European trophy, done 3 FA Cups. So we have got history, but since we've moved into the London Stadium, I think we should have taken that step up. We haven't, but we should have done. And I thought we were doing it when we were in Europe for 3 seasons in a row. I thought, right, this is us taking that step up, moving to the next level. And then we didn't. We've gone back to the club that we were behind before we moved there. And that's extraordinarily frustrating because we are much better off financially than we ever were at Upton Park.
It sounds like you need your Unai Emery, mate. That's what you're waiting for.
Yeah, well, maybe that's no. We just got to
who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I think he's been brilliant. So, do you think Villa are title challengers?
Not at this point. I think it's too early to say. What I've been quite consistent with it. I said, why can't the fans dream? We are currently in a title race. We're 3 points behind Arsenal in first place. You are in a title race until you're out of it. That's kind of how it is in my view. I wouldn't say we're going to win the league. And I would be a bit more assertive in my decision on what I'm going to say if we're talking in March or April or May. But at this point, you know, there's a lot of football ahead of us.
Yeah. I always say that you don't really know who's going to be properly challenging for that title till about February, till about Feb, because that's when you've got your challenges there. You start to see who is going to be in and around it. You know, there's still a lot of football, especially over. You've got to wait until after the Christmas period because the amount of football that's played.
If we win, say three out of our next 4 games, I might message you differently and say, you know what, mate, I think we're going to win the league because we've got you, and then it's Chelsea away next weekend, followed by Manchester United at home, and then Arsenal away. So if we get say 3 out of
again, do Arsenal again, please.
I'd be unreal, wouldn't it? So before we wrap up the episode, mate, I'm going to get some score predictions. What do you reckon the score is going to be?
I'm forever the optimist. I'm going to go draw. I'm going to go 2-2. I think it's going to be. I think there's going to be goals. It's going to be exciting, and we're going to get a draw. We're going to get a point out of the game. I'm being an optimist. I'm sure you don't feel the same, but given our ability to be a lot more difficult to beat at the moment, I think, and given that Villa are very used to holding onto the ball, and we are very used to not having the ball, I think it might play in our favour a little bit, and maybe give us a little bit of an edge at some point in the game. So I'm going to say we're going to get a draw.
Well, I will. I won't say what I think. No, I think it'll be a decent game. I'm quite concerned about Jared Bowen. I think he's one player that always concerns me. And I say Callum Wilson always loves a goal against the Villa. So, but I think it'll be an interesting game. So we'll wrap up the episode there. Thank you everyone for watching. Alex, again, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Final one from me. Up the Villa.